Harry Kane is a truly wonderful, elite level, top tier, brilliant footballer.
For years, Harry Kane has done everything a footballer could possibly do, and yet somehow, he's still not spoken about in the same breath as the great.
Just to go back to Harry Kane, what's your thoughts on him?
He knows he's never been the quickest.
At Tottenham, he was called a nearly man. Year after year, he carried a team that could never quite cross the finish line. 213 Premier League goals, 3 Golden Boots, 1 Playmaker Award. And still, people said he wasn't world class. Then he left England, a new chapter in Germany, 44 goals in his debut season at Bayern Munich, the most any player has ever scored in their first Bundesliga campaign. But when the Ballon d'Or list came out, Harry Kane finished 10th, behind players with fewer goals, fewer trophies, and, if we're being honest, less impact. And now, this season, Harry Kane is on a mission to remind the world that consistency is greatness, that loyalty doesn't mean mediocrity, that even without the flash, without the drama, he's been delivering elite numbers for over a decade. So the question is simple: why are we still ignoring Harry Kane? In a generation obsessed with prodigies and flair, Harry Kane wasn't the kind of name that excited headlines or youth scouts. He was slow, awkward, and overlooked, a local boy from Walthamstow who kept getting sent out on loan to the forgotten corners of English football: Leyton Orient, Millwall, Norwich, Leicester, the kind of clubs that build character, not careers. He watched others rise, the hyped teenagers, the golden boys, while he worked in the shadows, sharpening his finishing, toughening his resolve. Every missed opportunity became fuel. Every doubt became a vow. Kane wasn't born with the world's attention. He had to earn it, brick by brick, goal by goal. Then came 2014. A quiet storm began to form in North London. Tottenham Hotspur, under Mauricio Pochettino, needed a striker, an academy product perhaps, someone who would run, press, fight, and finish. The name Harry Kane didn't send shockwaves across the Premier League, but the moment he stepped onto the pitch, something shifted. The goals came, not in bursts of hype, but in waves of inevitability. That season, he scored 31 times in all competitions. No tricks, no theatrics, just ruthless precision. The fans started to chant his name. The pundits hesitated. Is he a one-season wonder? They asked. He answered not with words, but with seasons. Year after year, Kane delivered. 30 goals, 28, 32, 33. Each campaign, a quiet masterclass in consistency. He became Tottenham's beating heart, the striker who turned half chances into headlines, the captain who carried a team that was always almost there. But Tottenham's glory days never arrived. There were flashes, a Champions League final in 2019, title races that ended in heartbreak, unforgettable goals against Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester City. Yet as the years passed, the same question followed him like a shadow. Can he be world class if he doesn't win trophies? Kane never complained. He played through injuries, through criticism, through defeat. He became England's talisman, the captain of a nation desperate for redemption. Still, the narrative refused to change. Every missed final became ammunition for doubt. Every failure of Tottenham became a failure of Harry Kane. While others built their legacies in Madrid, Munich, and Manchester, Kane built his in silence. He stayed loyal to a club that couldn't match his ambition. Not out of weakness, but out of love, the kind of love that football rarely rewards. And in that silence, he became one of the most complete strikers the modern game has ever seen. His passing rivaled midfielders, his movement rivaled legends, his finishing rivaled history itself. Yet he remained defined not by the goals he scored, but by the trophies he didn't lift. There is a quiet kind of greatness, the kind that doesn't beg for attention, the kind that thrives even when no one's watching. For over a decade, Harry Kane embodied that. The boy who was doubted became a man who delivered. The man who delivered became a symbol of loyalty. But loyalty has its price, because while others chased the spotlight, Kane stayed, and the world stopped looking. There is a cruel irony in football. Sometimes the better you are, the less noise you make, and the less the world seems to care. Harry Kane was scoring at a rate that would make any striker envious. Haaland was breaking records in Manchester. Mbappe was rewriting history in Paris, and now in Real Madrid. Lewandowski was polishing trophies in Munich, then carried the same mentality to Barcelona. And Kane, well, he was simply doing what he always did: scoring, leading, believing. But football has a short memory. It celebrates moments, not marathons. It worships champions, not craftsmen. For years, the world looked at Harry Kane and saw a striker trapped by his surroundings. A man too good for his team, too loyal for his own good. The phrase world class was tossed around carelessly, applied to anyone with flash, flair, or a famous jersey. Yet somehow it always seemed to skip him. Why? Because in football, greatness is often judged not by what you do, but by where you do it. Had Kane worn the white of Real Madrid or the red of Bayern earlier in his career, he might have had a Ballon d'Or on his shelf. But in the blue and white of Tottenham, he was simply a great player on a team that almost won. Critics said he lacked big moments, but they never looked closely enough to see the ones he created. The curling finish against Arsenal.
Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal!
The record-breaking strike against Manchester City. The penalties under unbearable pressure for England. Those moments were big. They just didn't end with a trophy in his hands. The world began to craft a cruel narrative that Harry Kane was the symbol of almost a champion, almost the best, almost remembered, but numbers never lie. 213 Premier League goals before the age of 30, 3 golden boots, 4-time top assist provider for his club. He wasn't just a scorer, he was an orchestrator, a complete forward, the kind of player who could finish like Ronaldo and pass like De Bruyne. Yet the conversation always circled back to one question: but what has he won? The truth is, Kane's only crime was playing for a club that couldn't keep up with him, and in the unforgiving economy of football narratives, consistency without medals is invisible. For every chant of admiration, there was a whisper of dismissal. For every stat that proved his greatness, there was a pundit reminding us he had no major trophies. The world turned away, not because he wasn't great, but because it preferred a simpler story. The heroes who win and the rest who don't. But Harry Kane's story was never meant to be simple. It was about perseverance, about refusing to let others define your worth. And one day, he decided to change the story himself. After years of loyalty and heartbreak, he chose to chase greatness elsewhere, not to escape his past, but to rewrite how the world would remember him. The boy from North London was now wearing Bayern red. The world that once ignored him was about to watch. And for the first time, Harry Kane was no longer chasing respect. He was ready to demand it. When Harry Kane finally left Tottenham Hotspur, it wasn't just a transfer, it was liberation. After 12 years tied to one club, through heartbreak, near misses, and shattered dreams, he boarded a plane to Munich carrying not just his boots, but the weight of every almost that had defined his career. For years, he had given Tottenham his prime. Now he was ready to give the world a reason to look up. Bayern Munich had called, and the timing felt poetic. A club built on trophies, dominance, and expectation, everything Tottenham wasn't. In Germany, winning wasn't a hope, it was a habit. And when Kane walked into the Allianz Arena for the first time, you could feel it. The cameras, the pressure, the unspoken question: can the Englishman finally prove he's more than numbers? From his very first game, the answer began to form. The goals came fast. Tap-ins, headers, long-range strikes, volleys kissed by precision. Every movement felt like vengeance disguised as grace. Within months, he wasn't just fitting in. He was redefining what a debut season could, look like. 44 goals in all competitions. Top scorer in the Bundesliga. The European Golden Shoe. It wasn't just dominance. It was poetry written in boots and breath. But more than the numbers, it was the feeling. The sight of Kane in red, surrounded by teammates who matched his hunger, by a system that amplified his intelligence. Although they had a trophy-less season, it didn't matter because they didn't just sign a striker. They found a finisher who thought like a playmaker, a leader who didn't shout but made everyone around him better. Jamal Musiala, Joshua Kimmich, Gnabry, all spoke of his calm authority, his surgical mind. Kane didn't arrive to adapt, he arrived to elevate. Still, for all the triumphs, the old ghosts lingered. When the Ballon d'Or rankings were released, Kane's name sat at number 13, behind players with fewer goals, fewer assists, and fewer decisive performances. It was deja vu dressed in a tuxedo, the same silence, the same shrug from the football world. Commentators called him efficient, analysts said he was consistent, but few called him world best. It was as if greatness only counted when it came wrapped in a Champions League medal or a global fan cult. For Harry Kane, that was the bitter truth of reinvention. You could change leagues, shirts, and languages, but not the bias of recognition. Yet behind every goal, there was a message that grew louder. He wasn't chasing validation anymore. He was building a legacy that didn't need applause. And then, at long last, the drought ended. He lifted his first major club trophy when Bayern were crowned 2,000 2024-25 Bundesliga champions, a victory that would soon be followed by the German Super Cup.
How was that for you to lift your first silverware up in the air?
It feels amazing, to be honest.
But more than silverware, Kane had finally found his freedom to be seen without noise, to perform without begging for headlines. At Tottenham, he had been the loyal hero. At Bayern, he became the relentless executioner. He wasn't trying to prove the world wrong anymore. He was proving himself right. Every goal felt like a conversation between him and destiny. Every record broken felt like a quiet whisper to those who doubted. You should have paid attention sooner. He ended that season as Europe's most complete forward, a player with the poise of Benzema, the efficiency of Lewandowski, and the leadership of Shearer. Bayern's attack ran through him like electricity, each strike igniting a team that had been searching for a talisman since Robert Lewandowski's departure. Kane didn't replace him, he reinvented what that role could mean. And yet, as the cameras turned to newer stories, as younger names dominated trends and timelines, the same question hung over football's collective conscience. How could a man so extraordinary still feel under-celebrated? Sometimes the world doesn't ignore you because you're not brilliant. It ignores you because your brilliance doesn't need to shout. Harry Kane had changed countries, conquered critics, and ended his trophy drought. But more importantly, he had reclaimed his identity. The boy from London had turned into a global icon, not through noise, but through numbers that spoke louder than hype ever could. And yet, even as the medals began to shine, another truth lingered. For all he had achieved, the world still hadn't placed him where he belonged, among the very best of his era. But this time, he wasn't waiting for them to notice. He knew what was coming next. The mission was far from over. In football, emotion writes the headlines, but numbers write the truth. The roar of the crowd fades, the hype dissolves, the narratives twist with time, yet the numbers remain. And when you strip away the noise, when you look only at the cold, undeniable arithmetic of greatness, Harry Kane's legacy begins to look like something more than remarkable. It begins to look eternal. From his first full Premier League season to his first year in Germany, one fact has never changed. Harry Kane scores goals at a rate that borders on obsession. Over 400 career goals across club and country, more than 60 for England, the most in the nation's history, 3 Premier League golden boots, a European golden shoe, over 100 assists, and a goal contribution every 110 minutes for nearly a decade. That's not form, that's identity. Every great striker has a weapon. For some, it's pace. For others, power. For Kane, it's intelligence. He doesn't chase the ball. He studies it. He moves not where the play is, but where it's about to be. When you slow down his matches frame by frame, his genius isn't just in the finish, it's in the anticipation. The subtle shoulder check, the split-second pause, the angle of his first touch that kills defenders before they even react. He has scored in every possible way, with his left, his right, his head, from the spot, from distance, in chaos, in calm. His goals don't need fireworks. They are clean, efficient, deliberate, like a surgeon's cut, and that precision is what makes him more than a goal scorer. It makes him a system. For years, Tottenham's playbook revolved around one constant: Harry Kane. He wasn't just the finisher, he was the architect, dropping deep, creating passing lanes, pulling defenders out of shape so others could thrive. At Bayern, that same versatility turned a great attack into an unstoppable one. Kane doesn't simply score, he engineers balance. His heat maps are proof: a striker who covers midfield ground, a forward who assists as often as he finishes. When you place his numbers beside those of football's modern gods, Mbappe, Haaland, Lewandowski, Osimhen, the comparison doesn't expose him, it elevates him. His goals per minute ratio matches Europe's elite. His assist count surpasses many of them. His consistency outlasts most. While others fluctuate between seasons of brilliance and drought, Kane's graph is a straight, unwavering line of excellence. And yet, for all his records, his story remains curiously understated, perhaps because he lacks the chaos that draws headlines. No scandals, no controversies, no transfers driven by ego, just numbers. Relentless, unromantic, perfect numbers. He doesn't perform for cameras, he performs for history. Even his penalties tell a story, nearly flawless. Every strike a masterclass in calmness under pressure. For England, those moments carry the weight of a nation, yet his expression never changes. He steps up, breathes once, and delivers. That's not luck, That's psychology refined by repetition. But numbers don't just reveal who you are, they reveal who you've always been. From his teenage years to now, Kane's record shows one of football's rarest qualities: consistency. No era, no system, no coach, no teammate has ever dimmed his light. Whether under Pochettino, Mourinho, Southgate, or Tuchel, the result is the same: goals, leadership, reliability. In modern football, players rise fast and fade faster, but Kane's trajectory is built on patience. He doesn't explode, he endures. He doesn't chase trends, he defines them quietly. And maybe that's why he's so often overlooked, because the world is addicted to chaos, while Harry Kane is addicted to order. When you take away the noise and simply read his record, it becomes impossible to ignore the truth. He is not almost, he is not consistent, he is historic. His numbers are the silent testimony of a striker who never needed validation to prove what the data already knew. In an era obsessed with spectacle, Harry Kane is a statistic that refuses to fade. A reminder that greatness measured by numbers isn't just cold math, it's legacy carved in time. There comes a moment in every athlete's life when the pursuit of validation fades and only purpose remains. For Harry Kane, that moment is now. After years of silence, loyalty, and doubt, he has entered a season that feels less like another campaign and more like destiny. This is not about proving he can score. Everyone knows he can. This is about something deeper. It's about reclaiming the narrative, redefining what greatness means in an age that has forgotten how to recognize it. Kane's second season with Bayern Munich began with the kind of energy only unfinished stories possess. The critics had called him efficient, consistent, reliable, but never transcendent. He took those words, folded them quietly into memory, and let his boots do the answering. Within weeks, he was back to his rhythm, goals flowing with the inevitability of sunrise. Bayern, rejuvenated and ruthless, looked different. This was no longer a team adapting to Kane. This was a team built around him. He is no longer just a striker. He is a commander, orchestrating play from deep, dictating tempo, reading spaces 2 passes ahead. Younger teammates follow his movement like a blueprint. His presence steadies them. His silence speaks louder than most men's shouts. Every match now feels like a chapter in a redemption story. Not for a man who failed, but for a man the world failed to see. The Ballon d'Or still eludes him, but it no longer defines him. Recognition, once his unseen opponent, has become irrelevant. What matters now is immortality, not in votes or panels, but in permanence. To be the kind of player whose statistics survive generations. To have his name whispered decades from now, not because he won everything, but because he never stopped trying to. For England too, the mission continues. International tournaments have been his stage of heartbreak. Euro 2020, World Cup 2022, Euro 2024. But something about Kane has changed. He carries those memories like armor now. Every penalty missed became a scar, but every scar became a vow. The vow that when the next chance comes, he will not flinch. He will not blink, because Harry Kane has spent a career watching others lift trophies while he lifted expectations. He's ready to lift history. At 32, most strikers begin to fade. Kane seems to be entering his prime all over again. Stronger, sharper, calmer. He understands the game not just with his feet, but with his mind. That awareness, that maturity has made him unstoppable. Goals are no longer his only metric. Leadership, resilience, legacy, these are the things he now measures himself by. His mission this season is simple but monumental: to win the Champions League with Bayern Munich and to finally silence the doubt that has followed him like a shadow. Not to prove a point to the world, but to free himself from its noise. Because deep down, he knows legacy isn't about noise. It's about resonance, the echo that remains when everything else fades. He doesn't need fireworks anymore. He doesn't need validation. He's seen what applause sounds like and how quickly it disappears. Now he plays for something purer, the satisfaction of knowing that he has become exactly what he always believed he was, a legend in plain sight. And maybe that's the most fitting ending to his story. A striker who never begged to be seen, but who made it impossible to forget him. The world may still argue about rankings, trophies, or awards, but in the quiet corners of the sport, among those who understand what true mastery looks like, there's no debate left. Harry Kane doesn't need to be discovered. He's been here all along. Because greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just keeps scoring.